Shalom, good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcast to you from Jerusalem. And in today's top stories, an Egyptian brokered ceasefire took effect overnight after approximately 55 hours of hostilities, which included roughly 1,100 rockets and mortar shells fired toward Israel's southern communities. With Palestinian Islamic Jihad's top field commanders killed in Gaza, Israeli security forces continue to hunt the Iranian proxy's operatives in the West Bank. The European Union labels the current round of nuclear talks with Iran in Vienna as the one last effort. Operation Breaking Dawn, which included a tense round of approximately 50 hours of hostilities between the Iranian proxy, Palestinian Islamic Jihad in the Gaza Strip, and Israel, came to an end overnight when an Egyptian brokered ceasefire arrangement went into effect at 11:30 last night. Since Israel launched the first blow at 4:16 on Friday, following 3 days in which the Palestinian Islamic Jihad in Gaza pledged to target Israeli civilians over the incarceration of its top official in the West Bank, the internationally designated terror group launched roughly 1,100 rockets and mortar shells towards Israel's southern and central civilian communities. Nevertheless, 1 in every 5 projectiles that were indiscriminately launched from the densely populated Palestinian enclave failed to cross into Israeli territory, regrettably causing civilian casualties, including children. And out of the incoming rockets that penetrated Israeli airspace with a trajectory toward populated areas, the Israeli Air Defense Array had a successful 96% interception rate, effectively averting any direct loss of life. In contrast, the IDF launched repeated waves of pinpointed strikes against Islamic Jihad targets, eliminating the Iranian proxy's top field commanders of the northern and southern arenas of the Gaza Strip, among many other operatives. It is worth noting that while Islamic Jihad made every effort to kill Israeli civilians, Israel went out of its way to avert collateral damage. The Israeli Air Force published footage of one of its operations in which it sought to target the top Islamic Jihad field commander of Gaza's southern region, Khalid Mansour, in which it showed the extensive measures it undertakes to avoid harming innocent civilians, since the Jewish state does not regard the people of Gaza its enemy.
Israel carried out a precise counter-terror operation against an immediate threat. Our fight is not with the people of Gaza. Islamic Jihad is an Iranian proxy that wants to destroy the state of Israel and kill innocent Israelis.
It is important to highlight that intra-Palestinian tensions in Gaza saw the Islamist Hamas organization turn a cold shoulder toward the Iranian proxy Palestinian Islamic Jihad, which to its apparent surprise found itself facing Israel alone. Consequently, Israel capitalized on those tensions by exclusively targeting Islamic Jihad infrastructure and personnel, which ultimately drove the Iranian-backed Palestinian leadership to seek out an immediate Egyptian brokered ceasefire.
يعني بالتأكيد تم التوصل لاتفاق في ضوء التزام مصري بالإفراج عن الأسيرين خليل عواودة والأسير بسام السعدي في أسرع وقت ممكن، ونعلن وقف إطلاق النار الساعة 11:30 من هذه الليلة، ونرحب بالجهود المصرية التي بذلت لإنهاء هذه المعركة.
The terms of the Egyptian brokered ceasefire included the transfer of an incarcerated Palestinian terrorist on hunger strike to a medical facility, an Egyptian pledge to work for the release of a senior Islamic Jihad official, Bassam al-Saadi, from Israeli detention, alleviating the closure on the Hamas-controlled enclave, and allowing the transfer of gas to the sole power station in the Gaza Strip. While the terms for a ceasefire are broadly regarded as a clear defeat of the Iranian proxy, speaking at a press conference in Tehran, Islamic Jihad Secretary General Ziad al-Nahala sought to sell it to his patrons and followers as a victorious outcome for his battered organization.
العدو استهدف كسر الجهاد الإسلامي. نحن لم ننكسر وحققنا إنجاز وفرضنا الشروط التي ابتدأت فيها المعركة على العدو. هذا ببساطة كان الاتفاق بسيطا والإنجاز واضحا، أن تلتزم إسرائيل بإطلاق الأخوين الأسيرين الأخ خليل عودة والشيخ بسام. هذا هو الاتفاق، هذا هو جوهر الاتفاق. ثانيا بشكل عام نحن أكدنا في هذا الاتفاق على وحدة الشعب الفلسطيني وعلى وحدة الساحات الفلسطينية. هذا هو الموقف ببساطة متناهية.
The Palestinian Islamic Jihad leader went on to claim that his group managed to unify the Palestinian front in Israel, the West Bank, and Gaza Strip in a statement clearly detached from reality on the ground.
ونحن عملنا في هذه المعركة على وحدة الساحات الفلسطينية. عندما نرفع شعارا، هذا الشعار هذا يعني تحدي لكل المشروع الصهيوني، وليس المشروع الصهيوني، لكل المؤامرات التي تحاك من أجل تفرقة الشعب الفلسطيني، وعلى قاعدة أن غزة في جهة ولها مشروع والضفة لها مشروع وال48 له مشروع.
It is worth noting that prior to his press conference, al-Nahala met with the leader of the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, Major General Hossein Salami, to update him on the latest developments. The images of Islamic Jihad leaders meeting with their patrons in Iran, whilst the Gazan population bears the brunt of battle, was highlighted by Jerusalem's top officials as a clear illustration of the disconnect that plagues Palestinian society.
הנהגת הג'יהאד האסלאמי שיושבת בחו"ל במסעדות ומתארחת בבתי מלון בטהרן, בסוריה ובלבנון, מנותקת מאנשיה ופוגעת פגיעה אנושה בחייהם ובפרנסתם של תושבי עזה. הם גם ישלמו את החשבון. משמרות המהפכה האיראנים לא ישלמו את המשכורות של תושבי עזה. המאמץ ההתקפי מול מחוללי הטרור ימשיך ויתעצם בלי גבולות ובלי מגבלות.
Defense Minister Gantz further asserted Israel's resolve to protect its citizens and to hunt down any terrorist who seeks to exercise terror against the Jewish state.
סיכלנו ונמשיך לסכל טרוריסטים רבים שמתכננים לשגר רקטות ופצמ"רים לישראל. פגענו בעשרות מתקנים צבאיים שמשמשים את הג'יהאד האסלאמי לייצור ולשיגור, ולוחמי כיפת ברזל שאני נמצא איתם כאן עכשיו ביחד ממשיכים להגן על העורף עם עיניים על המטרות כל הזמן.
Following up on the pledge by Jerusalem's top defense official as part of Operation Wavebreaker, IDF, ISA or Shin Bet and Border Police Special Operations Forces conducted extensive counter-terror operations throughout the West Bank districts of Judea and Samaria over the weekend, apprehending dozens of Palestinian Islamic Jihad terror operatives, including 4 early this morning. And while exchanges of fire and violent clashes were reported during the activity overnight, no injuries were reported among the Israeli troops. Turning to the Austrian capital Vienna, where efforts to revive the 2015 nuclear agreement with Iran have been described to TV7 by a Western diplomat as similar to a driver stepping all the way on the gas pedal while the vehicle's gear remains in neutral. EU Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell voiced hope over the weekend that his latest attempt to broker the deal's revival would finally bear fruit, once again reiterating, however, his personal conviction that the former US administration is to blame for Iran's defiant nuclear activities.
As coordinator of the Vienna talks between Iran and the international community, in order to try to look for a revival of the nuclear deal that was broken due to the Trump withdrawal, I've been working hard during the last 2 months in order to make everybody go back to Vienna, bringing a positive answer from the consultations that all of them has been taking on their capitals.
While managing to draw the Iranians back to the negotiating table in Vienna, the European Union sought to highlight the urgency of the present round of talks, defining this round of diplomacy as a one last effort.
C'est le temps pour le dernier effort pour discuter la récente proposition des représentants et prendre les décisions clés et décisives politiques dans les capitales des pays qui sont participants de JCPOA. Donc le processus est en cours maintenant à Vienne et nous espérons qu'on va voir les résultats très tôt.
Despite hopes by the European Union for Iran to forgo on its non-nuclear demands, the Islamic Republic repeatedly refuted any claims of alerting its position, since doing so would be considered an Iranian defeat. And while Tehran continues to demand that Washington succumb to its non-nuclear demands, the strategic coordinator for the U.S. National Security Council, retired Rear Admiral John Kirby, stressed that the United States would not alter its position and urged Iran to accept the terms of the agreement.
The negotiations are pretty much complete at this point. You heard the president say, we're not going to wait forever for Iran to take this deal. It's a deal on the table. They ought to take it. I'm not going to slap a label on it and say last ditch, but clearly time does appear to be getting very short in terms of being able to get to a deal. And again, we urge Iran to take this deal on the table.
Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News. It is important for us to highlight that TV7 Israel is a donation-based ministry. Therefore, if you're blessed by our productions, please consider making a financial contribution that in turn will enable us to sustain our ongoing operations. Additionally, I'd like to encourage you, as ever, pray for our brethren and sisterin worldwide and for the peace of Jerusalem and the salvation of Israel. I'm Jonathan Hassan, wishing you a Shavua Mevorach, and we will see you again tomorrow at the same time.